Hey guys, what's up? Mike Locke here. Thanks for tuning in to another one of my video blogs. I have a feeling this is going to be a good video. It's going to help a lot of people because this exercise that I want to talk about really, I think, can change your life and really start to put you in a position to really fuel your dreams and really inspire you to get on track, so to speak. And it's an exercise that it's about describing your ideal day, and I'll get to the details in a second, but I want to talk about why I actually came about this topic and why I thought this was a good topic for a video. So I was listening to an audiobook again. I have this book, Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. If you have not read that book and you love Napoleon Hill's stuff, a lot of his principles, his success principles, definitely check out this book. I'll put a little picture right here. It's Napoleon Hill's Outwitting the Devil. In the book, Napoleon Hill's really a great philosopher. He's a great thinker. He really he's like a scientist when it comes to trying to figure out what makes people succeed versus people that don't succeed. And he lays his thoughts out in a book. This book was written 70 years ago, and it was published, I think, in 2011. But the things that he talks about in that book, it's amazing how ahead of his time he was about what makes people fail versus what makes them succeed and things like that. Any event, long story short, he goes into the book, he interviews the devil, so to speak. He interviews the devil, and he gets the devil to talk about what makes people fail versus what makes them succeed and things like that. And the devil talks about people, the devil have control over people that drift in life. And essentially you have drifters and you have non-drifters. Drifters are essentially people that go through life aimlessly, that don't really think for themselves, that doesn't have an organized plan or a definiteness of purpose in life that they're striving for. Okay, whenever you don't have a definite purpose in life, you're aimlessly drifting about. And we all do it at certain times, but what happens is a lot of us kind of like get a hold of our drifting, and we kind of get back on track. But a lot of people can drift and drift and drift and ultimately get into the habit of drifting, and they're just wasting their lives and go into bad habits. Whether it's drifting and wasting their time, they're not being productive, they're overeating, they're overindulging in sexual thoughts. This book even goes into deep stuff like that. It's deep. So it's like whenever you're drifting into things that don't really help you in the long run, that's not making you happy, you're drifting and you're in the control of the devil, according to the book, according to Napoleon Hill, which is very provocative and thought-provoking, but it's interesting. And the only way to not have to break out of this, to not be a puppet of the devil, so to speak, is to have your own thought, to really have a definite purpose in life and an organized plan in moving towards that particular goal. Okay, so you have drifters and you have non-drifters. The non-drifters are those with a definite purpose. Okay, a definiteness of purpose and an organized plan, and they're striving towards that particular purpose. Okay, now this leads me to, I was going to talk about this book, but I remember this question, and I get this ever so often. I get people that actually gets a little deep when they send me emails. They're like, Mike, I love the fact that you teach this stuff. You teach web UI design, you're teaching UX. He goes, but I really don't know what I want to do. I don't know. It's hard. I don't know what I want to do. And that question, trying to figure out what you want to do in life from a professional standpoint, let's start there, it's hard. It's one of the hardest questions that you can ask, or it's one of the hardest questions to answer. And not everyone can answer that. But this exercise can really help you and get you on track to thinking about what you is and what you want to strive for on a day-to-day basis. And the exercise, and it'll fuel your dreams and really get you inspired to start taking baby steps towards something. And the exercise is basically answering the question of what does your perfect average day look like? This particular exercise, I was first introduced by this exercise by this guy named Frank Kern, who is a internet marketer that sells products and information products to other internet marketers. You know, I've been following Frank Kern for like probably 10 years now, over 10 years. And he's huge in the internet marketing space. I have a few friends that are huge in internet marketing, things like that, and they love Frank Kern stuff. And you know, he's on. You can type in Frank Kern. He's on YouTube and stuff like that. And I don't know what he does today, but he had a talk. He had a talk called Core Influence, and in his talk, he helped people. He described this exercise that he did, which is describing your perfect ideal day and how it changed his life. I went deeper into doing this exercise, and it's amazing. It actually changed my life, so to speak, because it gave me a clear picture of what it is I'm striving for every day and what it is I strive for. Also, when you go through this exercise, and I'll list out some of the instructions and details of the exercise, but when you go through this exercise, it also will probably change the way you're doing things today. Like, you may have thought that you wanted this particular thing in life, but when you describe your ideal day, it actually is totally opposite on what you think you were going for. And it changes that. So a little like a short version of how it changed me was, I always thought I want to be wealthy. I want to make a lot of money. But when I did this exercise like 4 years ago or whatnot, I realized that my ideal day is very close to what I was doing today, with the exception of, you know, a little extra money, you know, so to speak, you know, and running my own business, but I didn't have to be rich, because the ideal day didn't really talk about anything monetarily from a standpoint of having so much money. I didn't have to be this millionaire that I thought I wanted to be. I could make $20,000 to $30,000 a month, which is a lot of money, but that would be my ideal happiness, you know, when it came down to that. So it changed my outlook on being rich or just having a good chunk of money and living happy and doing all the things that I wanted to do. Basically, I advise everyone, if you're in a situation where you're not happy, you're not sure what you want to do day to day, you're wasting time on YouTube, not on my stuff, but on just constantly watching videos over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, and you're not being productive week after week, day after day, and you want to get back focused on that purpose, that drive, take this exercise. Do this exercise. Do the exercise. It's called describing what would your perfect day, your perfect average day look like. Okay, so you want to describe what would your perfect average day look like. And the purpose of doing this is when you go through this exercise, you want to, and I'm reading some of the stuff here. I actually wrote this out myself. Frank Kern spoke about this in a talk. I wrote this out, and so I'm going to post a PDF to this below in the description box. You can just click on it, download it, and print it out yourself. All right. But basically, when you go through this exercise, you know, there's no limitations, okay, to what your to anything in life. For example, financially, geographically, health-wise, okay. If you have a health problem right now, your ideal day may not or shouldn't include that health problem. You know, you're 100% healthy, etc. You want to list out your ideal day, not necessarily something that you have right now, because where you want to be, what your desire is. Okay, consequences. Obviously, you don't want to do anything that breaks the law, because that's not realistic. That wouldn't last long. And this is your average day. This is stuff that you're going to do on a daily basis, something that you will not get tired of, and something that you can see yourself doing every day and not getting sick of. Okay? And when you go through this exercise, you want to list out and be as specific as possible. Okay, so I'm going to run through a few questions that, give you some examples, and just kind of help you along in terms of like describing this ideal day. For example, you want to list out things like, where do you live? What would your house look like? What time would you wake up in the morning? What would you do in the morning? What would you think about in the morning or say in the morning? Who would be there in the morning with you? What would you have for breakfast? What would you do the first half of the day? Where would you go for lunch? What would you eat for lunch? Would you go to the gym, etc., and things like that? What would you have lunch with your friends, with your wife, with your spouse, with your kids? Kids are probably at school, whatnot. But with your friends, what would your friends be like? Let's say you have friends right now that aren't fun and aren't ambitious. Maybe your friends are ambitious. What would you do for work? What would you do? What would your business look like? What time would you go into work? What title would you have? I actually listed it down. That was a biggie. Okay. What would you do for work? What would your title be? And what type of things would you do at work? What time would you start work? Let's see. What's the other one? What is your relationship like, with your spouse? Do you have kids? Maybe your average day includes those kids, and you don't have kids right now, but that's something that you're aspiring for. What would you, do for dinner? What would your night be? What would the nighttime be? Look like? What would you think about before you go to bed? You can just get down to the very mundane things about like what you're thinking, what type of shoes you're wearing, those type of things. How does the house look like? What does the room look like? Describe some of the details and things like that. It'll really paint a good picture of what your core influence is, basically, when you go through all these different exercises. Those are just some of the questions. I mean, you can think of many more questions to ask, but basically all those little questions are just sub questions to the answering the big question, what your ideal day looks like. And when you do this, basically you want to list out not necessarily your goals, but your desired experiences. And then what this is going to do is going to help you shape some of those goals. So like, for example, when you talk about get down to what it is you want to do for work and what title you want to have. For example, for me, one would be, there's a couple of different things. I go through this a lot, and I kind of shape my thinking. One thing is, I work for myself. I go to my little office. I record videos or whatnot, tutorial videos, blog videos like this, and I help people. That's one. The other one is I'm a, director of user experience for a popular startup that's growing revenue-wise month over month. That's pre-IPO. So I'm a very early employee that have, I'm set up for a strong, stock options. I'm kind of set up financially where I'm going to be okay. But we have a small team, maybe 7 to 15 people, and we're building a product that customers love, that's making money, that have a lot of user experience needs and things like that. And I'm a strong part of that from a director standpoint. Hot startup, that's a very nice ideal situation that doesn't come around often. But that's my ideal situation from a work standpoint. So there's many things, right? So I go through my list, and when you do this, what it's going to do is going to fuel you And what you can do, what you can also do is create a vision board. You can write out this, and you can actually put pictures of some of your answers to your question on a vision board and keep it as an affirmation on a day-to-day basis. And you look at that and you see, you wake up every morning and you see your answer to your ideal average day, perfect day, listed out in pictures, and it'll give you a vision and an affirmation of what it is you're striving for on a day-to-day basis. Okay, you do this exercise, I guarantee, and if you're honest with this exercise, I guarantee it, it's going to change your life, it's going to change your day, it's going to make you smile, it's going to make you a little bit more happier than probably where you are today, and give you something to strive for the next week. You know, and then, you know, it might die down several months from now, 8 months from now, but guess what? Do it again. Reinvent that question and ask yourself what it is, you know, you're going to do. Like this, my ideal average day was probably a lot different 20 years ago than it is today. Now, when I answered this question, it involved my kids because I have kids. So it involved me taking my kids to school, taking my kids to the beach and things like that, and to the park and playing with them and things like that. Whereas when I was younger, 19, 8, you know, 20, it probably didn't include that at that point. I don't know. You know, so you have to reinvent this question ever so often. But you do this, guarantee it will change your life, will inspire you, and will give you something, an affirmation to look for every day and something to strive for. And you can start setting your goals based on some of these answers to this question. All right, so take the exercise, list out what your perfect day, average day looks like, and it's a very powerful exercise. Do it. It'll change your life, definitely. It did for me. It really helped me out. So that's it, guys. All right, thanks for watching this video. If you like the things that I talk about, guys, please hit the like button on the video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and check out my website, mlwebco.com, for more information and things that I do. And check out my training course if you're interested in learning more about UI and UX and things like that. All right, thanks, guys, for watching. We'll talk soon. Peace.